What happens to a car when it arrives at Pierre Hedary's? This is a good question that I feel everybody deserves to know the answer to, because I really don't like having to tell people over and over again my process when a car arrives at my shop. But I typically try to give people a good idea of how their cars are doing. So the first thing I tell people is if you ever want an update on your car, you're always free to call or email me and I will give you one. I will give you an honest update. I won't necessarily tell you what you want to hear, but I will give you an update of some sort, even if the update is not an update. Now, when cars come in here, they're split into two groups. Cars that need some basic maintenance and repair, and this is usually under 50 hours of work. And then cars that need major service and repair. I do give some priority to daily drivers because I know that people need their cars at some point. Now, cars that need major repair go on a much longer timeline than cars that need basic maintenance and service. Why is that? Well, first of all, we try to split up our labor resources because labor resources need to be allocated to both streams. So on one hand, it's probably not going to be super productive for me to spend 60 hours working in a car when I know that I'm waiting for the engine to come back from the rebuilders. But on the other hand, I know that it's going to be very productive for me to spend 60 hours working on 3 or 4 cars when I know that their owners are going to need them back sooner. So what I will typically do on those cars is I'll try to have all my parts ready before the cars show up. And if anything additional is needed, I'll try to order it within the first week that the car is there. Now, that doesn't mean that there's necessarily a fast turnaround for those cars, but it's much easier to sort out, say, a 75,000 mile 560 SL that needs a timing chain, lower ball joints, defrost actuator, valve cover gaskets, rear brake hoses, an AC compressor, belts, spark plugs, cam oiler tube kits, maybe some vacuum hoses, windshield wiper blades, top lock grommets, etc., than it is, say, a 280 SE that's been sitting for 35 years and has an unknown list of needs. Now, I find that with the bigger projects, things go better if you work slowly and plan the project out. For example, we had a 280 SE shipped here from the West Coast recently. So I took my time, studied the car, figured out that it is going to need a gas tank. But then I started making a special chemical concoction for the engine to make sure that the piston rings were totally unstuck before I turned it over. You know, I've supplemented this with a leak down test to make sure that the solution is working. Again, proceed slowly like you're taking off in a big cargo plane, and then once you're airborne, things start to move really fast. Now, when you're looking at a long-term project, the number one goal of the long-term project is to find all of the stuff that's bad or damaged or broken and all of the stuff that's not. What you don't want to do is you don't want to cause more harm by trying to do a hasty repair. So with the example of the 280 SE, if the piston rings are good and healthy because the car passes a leak down test, which is a little less harsh than a compression test, I know that if I slowly unstick the piston rings, then the engine will probably be okay. But if I rapidly turn the engine over without really caring too much, I could break a piston ring, especially if they're stuck on the piston itself. You know, this is an example of going slowly, creating a better long-term result. Likewise, with these cars that need long-term repairs, I try to make sure that I identify all their problems, but I have to make adjustments to the schedule and workload and needs and everything as we go, because as we dig into the car, we uncover more and more layers. So those cars can sit for a few weeks before I start on them. Sometimes they have to sit for a few months because the first job required may be major body work, or it may be pulling the engine out, you know, or it may be that we need to get the car running so we can figure out why it was parked in the first place. So again, we have to play detective a little bit, and sometimes that takes time. But, you know, even though I come off as apologetic, I think that at the end of the day, I'm committed to finishing every car and making it work like it's supposed to. And this takes a lot of time and a very methodical approach. I can't go to bed at night and not think about my work. You know, I go to bed every night trying to work out the problems that I've encountered in the shop during the day and trying to figure out what the best solution is. And for those of you that do wait with us patiently while we resurrect your cars and don't lose interest in them and don't become irate and snippy and frustrated, God bless you. You're helping me more than you know. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and please tap the bell for more notifications. And in the future, I think that I'm going to do more videos about how things actually work in the shop, because I want everybody to have more of an idea about what the inside of a garage actually is like, you know, instead of going to, say, Discovery Channel and hoping to learn something there. But in the meantime, working on a Mercedes Benz is like working on no other car. They're all very different. They all have different problems. No two cars are the same. No cars arrive to the point of sorted on the same path. There's always a bunch of little turns and twists. Even a 20,000 mile 560 SL or a 450,000 mile 300D or a 190 Fintail sedan that's been sitting for a long time, these cars are not really the same, and there has to be a different approach applied every time you're trying to sort a different car like this. With the 560 SL, you want to preserve as much of the car as possible. With the 190, you want to find out how many of the car's functions have been lost to time and need to be revived. Anyway, enjoy. Enjoy, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Sayonara.
Perfect. Thanks, Pierre.